You're tuned in to Porch Talk with Rev Pat, where raw, real talk rules. So sit back and relax with that delicious cup of coffee or tea or your favorite glass of wine as Rev Pat delivers real, transparent, and raw conversations about all things life. Let's get started.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for one more episode of Porch Talk with Rev Pat. I am so blessed to have you join me again for another episode. Today, I am interviewing Lauren Abrams, and she is an attorney. She has a podcast, 52 Weeks of Hope, and she has two teenagers that get on her nerve. I know what that's like because I raised two, and I have two other ones up there that get on my nerve. But so if you have anything in common with her, you have that in common. And one of the things that we all have in common in this day and time is the need for hope, the need to hear somebody say, don't give up. It's worth going through whatever you're going through. So grab your coffee, grab your tea, even your glass of wine, and let's get talking. All right, Miss Norman, I just gave a brief synopsis of what you do, but you do a lot. You really do. I love the fact that you have worked tirelessly for 22 years advocating for employees and their rights. And that's amazing. That kudos to you. Oftentimes we feel like, and I've been an employee, oftentimes we feel like we don't have anybody that's willing to go to bat for us. So to know that that's what you've been doing for 22 years is amazing. I'm not going to ask you about the teenagers because I already know. Look at my hair. You see this gray hair. That's where it came from. What most jumped out to me in your biography is the 52 Weeks of Hope. As a minister, it's my responsibility, it's my mandate, it's my assignment, however people want to see it. And if you don't like hearing Jesus talk, y'all just scroll or fast forward. It is a requirement that I'm able to offer people hope. And I have, as you can imagine, over the last 2 years, hope was in demand. I'll say it like that. And even myself at the end of 2020, I'll say at the end of 2020, I was overwhelmed, exhausted emotionally because as part of ministry, having attended so many funerals, having gotten so many calls from those that needed prayer and needed an encouraging word, I was EMPTY in capital letters and said, I don't have anything else. So what inspired I've kind of listened to a couple of your interviews and I almost know this answer, but I still want you to share it with others. How did you get this vision for 52 Weeks of Hope?
Well, I didn't see it as a podcast. I love how yours came about and you were like, no, I'm not doing that. But I love how, if it's your path, it's your path. It's going to happen one way or another. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I went through my own dark night of the soul. Nobody escapes it. I mean, it's just that's life. And the only way through is through. But I'm somebody who's always grateful. I love my life. I know what a miracle I am. I'm not going to go through all that unless you really want me to. But I'm somebody that worked hard for everything I have. And I'm always grateful for it. And a number of years ago, I just went through a really tough time. And when I was going through it, I got through it. And when I did, I was like, what the hell was that? Really, I was like, okay, God, really, what was that?
Happened.
It was one of those. And I was like, and I just had that moment where I am a single mom raising these two kids and I'm of service all over the place and I'm working hard and doing what we do. And I've got my girlfriend, I'm doing, the full life, this and that. But it doesn't matter. I'm not filled up and I'm wondering, why are we here? I'm having my moment of questioning, why are we here? Why are we on this earth? And I thought, I'm going to find out. And I decided,
never ask that question if you're not ready for the answer. I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah.
There was y'all out there. Don't ask that question if you're not ready for the answer.
I have to say, one person made my head spin, so I decided I'm not a DIYer or anything like that. That's for sure. But I thought I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna do a project, and that's as close as DIY as I would get. And I was gonna ask one person a year that question, much older demographic. Okay, they say nobody on their deathbed ever wished they worked harder or made more money. So what have you learned from living life? What have you gleaned? Tell me, I want to know. And so I started doing it. I started interviewing a person a week just for me. And I could not believe what people would tell me. They would divulge the most personal information, and I'm not a shrink or anything. Maybe it's all those years of taking depositions. I have no idea. But it wasn't like that. I just went as a human, and I was talking, and people would just tell me. And I would go home and I would write up to my friend sometimes, or just for me, and my own verbiage, not making fun of them, but kind of funny and just chatty, and what the person had told me. And after about 2.5 months, there started to be common themes. And I was like, this is so good. This is rich. I have to share it with people. I'll do one of those books that you open up and you're like, that's just what I needed to hear. Or you close it and you open it again and go, no, that's what I needed to hear, and call it 52 Weeks of Hope. And then COVID hit and I did a pivot, because that's what we do in life. We pivot. And I started a podcast. And then I wasn't limited to just people who live in Los Angeles. I could talk to leaders from all over the world and change agents and healers. I have gotten such an education. And after my 52nd week, I did a synopsis because at the end of every interview, I say, what's your message of hope? I always ask for that. And I did a synopsis of all my messages of hope. And I called it Meaning of Life. I was like, I now know the meaning of life. So I'm like, okay, I got it. But it's the same as, like, I don't know. So anyway, so that's what started 52 Weeks of Hope.
Well, let me tell you, let me add, I'll share this with you, and I'm sure you've learned this on this journey of talking to people. When you say that they shared the most personal of stories, and you're sitting there going, really? Would you agree that what made that happen was the fact that that person had someone who was willing to listen? Because I think that's more what we need. More people. I think people yearn for not the advice that's going to come from me, but the fact that somebody listened, that I found their stories worth listening to, that we find their hurts and their pains worth hearing about. Because it's not just, okay, everybody is going through that. You actually have someone who's willing to really say, tell me about you. Tell me about what you're going through. So in that process of listening, it turned into a podcast. And you said
that is the best question I've ever been asked. Nobody has asked me that. And I wonder, I think that is a great question. Everyone needs to be heard. Everyone. It's such a basic need. And
yes, that's the beauty of relationship. Just think about it on even during your difficult times, even during my challenging times, it wasn't that I needed advice. I didn't need advice. I just needed someone to hear me and to know that they valued my hurt, my pain, my challenge. And that meant more to me than 50 people in line at offering to buy me coffee, cake, let me take you to dinner, let me do lunch. No, I just need one person that's going to sit there. And if I want to break down, I can break down. If I want to say this comes from 50 years ago, they're willing to listen. So I think that's why you had people respond to those of us that have a heart for them, whether we're doing it from a place of maybe my own healing or not. So that's what it was. And it was already decided that it was going to happen that way. So you get the podcast, and now I'm not in LA. How did you get people to sit and share and talk on 52 Weeks of Hope? Does every week have a different theme, or do you just let it rip? Let's just sit here and talk.
Well, we can, and I also want to add, we also connect through our stories. So I was interviewing a lot of different religious leaders that I'm not religiously trained or have this background. And
none of us college.
Yeah, like in undergrad. Yeah, I mean, I used to call myself a twice-a-year Jew. Twice a year, we'd like celebrate 2 holidays. Like that was it. I didn't know anything. And like I knew nothing. And anyway, so I started interviewing different religious leaders, and so an imam told me that the easiest way to get rid of prejudice against a Muslim was to meet one. And I was like, oh, that's so good. So he would have his congregation volunteer to feed the homeless and the hungry during the holidays, along with the Christian and the churches. And they would just talk and they would eat together and and everybody was the same. And that's how they would get rid of prejudice. So, and with him, he was a referral from a rabbi who I trusted. And I asked this rabbi who was I can't even to put into words when he talked about how he talked about community. Because I asked him, well, how are you maintaining your congregation and community during lockdown and everything? Because I was talking to him about that. And I've listened to a lot of leaders talk like you did about just burnout and everything else, because it's give, give, give. So I'll get to that. Those are the healing modalities, which I love. I mean, I've gotten such an education. Half time, I think it's for me. But I know people need it. But I asked the question, who would you want to listen to if you were a listener, 52 Weeks of Hope? And then I trust my inner guide. I trust my gut of who would be good for my listeners to listen to. That is how I do it. And I ask, what's the hardest challenge that you've gone through? How did you overcome it? And what's your message of hope? Those are the things. So but now it's like everybody's gone through it. And I've learned that it's not the famous people. It's the regular everyday stories and how we get through things, and the message that you can get through everything, and you do. And the only way through is through. And Liz, like, I away from that and going into the healing modalities and the breath work, I'm telling you, I now am so conscious of my breath. Am I holding my breath during something? And
Really? What breath work?
I know. See, I didn't know. See, I always think I am the only one that didn't know about anything. A lot of my listeners are women.
No, you're not alone, sweetie, because everybody I've had on have talked about something that I didn't know about, but our stories are so intertwined, and what we miss has a human race. I'm not talking about white, black.
Okay, so purple. This is so fascinating to me, and this is what to me. So think of every time you just break suddenly because you stop. Evidently, that's a trauma to our physical body, and because you go like that with your breath. Think of that, because I think trauma means sexual abuse. I think it's something horrible when somebody says Ukraine. I think trauma is terrible, right? I just made your podcast not evergreen by saying Ukraine. But anyway, so what? you can yeah, really? Sorry.
I'm not delete. No, we don't do that here.
Okay. No. So, but anytime you like go or you stop breathing, that's a trauma. That counts as a trauma to our system. I've gotten such an education, I'm telling you. And so you want to be conscious of your breathing and make sure you're taking deep breaths. You want to take in lots of oxygen. So you want to get outside and deep. And I'm in LA where the air isn't like the best, by the way. And I'm telling you this. So, but you want to breathe deep breaths. It's so good and necessary for our bodies. We're inside all the time now. I don't know about you guys, but I'm in front of a screen a gazillion hours a day. So,
Me too.
So that's I have on my Facebook page, it just lives there, a whole breathwork session by this woman who's phenomenal. And it gets trauma out of your entire body. It goes back to like real trauma. That one's pretty deep. I've learned about tapping and EFT.
That's some good stuff right there. I would have probably just been sitting there fascinated. But that's what I'm saying. You know, I think the 52 Weeks of Hope and being allowed to talk to people from every walk of life, because I'll be honest with you, when it dawned on me who you were, because I didn't even look at any of that, I just looked at 52 Weeks of Hope. That's what I saw, and that's why I sent you the invitation. But when it dawned on me after you sent me your one page on yesterday, and it dawned on me who you are, I went, wait a minute, what? And this is because this is how we are by nature. Immediately, I thought to myself, oh my God, such a maybe I should switch up how I, and then I went back to myself and I said, no, she's just another woman doing the same thing you're doing. And what she's trying to do is make a difference in people's lives. And that's why you invited her. She's not Lauren Abrams, ... She's Lauren Abrams, someone that God is using to change the lives of others. And that's all she is. And I think when we begin to see one another at that level, not the other superficial stuff, but at the level where we all bring something to the table to help someone else. Because to me, that's the most important thing. And one of the things you had was, you said you had imposter syndrome listed as one of the topics. And I went, what in the world would she know about imposter syndrome? What did she want to talk to about? I mean, I can identify with imposter syndrome, but why is that a topic with you?
Oh my gosh, are you kidding? Everything. Even starting podcasting, I was like, I can remember being on Zooms, on business Zooms after I started my podcast, and all the little squares, and you'd see two people, and I'd think they're talking about me. I'm like, they're talking about, I mean, I don't even know them. And since when did I become this self-obsessed? I was like, they're talking about me. They're thinking, who does she think she is, starting a podcast? And about that. Like, I mean, I still because I merged my LinkedIn too with law and my podcast, which have nothing to do with each other whatsoever, by the way, at all. And
thought that. You really think that?
Oh my God, yeah. And I keep thinking I could die any minute. I could be hit by a car. Who cares what anyone thinks? And I keep going. I swear that is what got me through, not like anything else for that. But I can remember practicing law, being in a courthouse. I'd been practicing probably 10 years, walking down the hallway, thinking, look at all these people. They all think I'm a lawyer. Like, I have them fooled. I am a lawyer. I worked so hard putting myself through college and law school and grad school. I'd been practicing. I was in anyway. Yeah, I can remember being on a playground when my kids were little, thinking, "Look at these kids calling me mom." Like I'm adulting and fooling everyone.
But see now, but I can see myself now. See, that's hilarious, because in all honesty, I could see myself thinking that. But I am just so true to who I am. If I did have that thought every once in a while, I remember, because I do a live every morning on our church business page. I go live. I do a devotional live every single morning. I have for the past 2-3 years, almost 3 years. Didn't want to do it, but when he tells you to do something, you do it. And so for the first, I would say for maybe the first couple of times, because I did not have a clue what I was doing, and I was very self-conscious about my looks, and I know so many powerful women of God, powerful, that I could have given him a resume and said, hey, you might want to check her instead of me. And for the briefest of moments, I almost fell into that. And then I realized, no, I like being me. I just simply like being me. I don't, I'm one of those crazy people that goes, if you don't like me, don't follow me. If you don't want to watch my live, just do this, scroll, and I'm good with it. And so when I saw imposter syndrome for you, I was like, oh, wow, because we don't think that way. But then here you go. That ties into 52 weeks of hope. What do you do when you feel like you're not good enough and you've given up because you feel like you don't measure up?
And that whole thing is it's fear. It's all fear-based, and it's not real. Fear is false evidence appearing real.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes an action. You cannot think your way into right action. You can't. God doesn't drive parked cars. That's what I was taught. You can't sit in a corner and hope that God, please get me this or that. You have to take an action, even if it's the smallest action. And this is a question I've asked. I always ask my guests, what if somebody, and I don't mean like clinically depressed. I'm not qualified for anything like that, but just that malaise that I don't want to keep going. This is hard. I'm tired. The thing that hits like all the time. I don't know. I mean, I get it. Everyone gets it. And it's about action. And I'm blanking on her name. Mel Robbins, who says, if you have a thought, take action in the first 5 seconds or you're not going to do anything with it. So I try to always remember, okay, do something right now. Yeah, because if you've got this thought, like God put that dream in your head for a reason. It's not like a random thought. God put that in your head for a reason. And everybody is worthy. Everyone has their own unique handprint. Nobody can do what you can do the way you can do it. Everyone can't receive the message the way I can say it. So they need to hear it from Pat, maybe, or maybe somebody else, somebody who's listening right now. You have a way of speaking in your unique way. Is it art, writing, read, talking, whatever it is? Everyone has unique talents and you're worth it. So whatever it is that you want to do, you can do it. And maybe it's 15 minutes towards that dream in a day. Maybe it's more, and you're not inventing the wheel. You can Google anything and find out how to do it.
But now, so with 52 weeks of hope, with all of these beautiful people pouring into the podcast, ways to make your life better. And I think maybe some people probably, and I'm going to step on your toes for a minute, misunderstand what hope is and the true meaning of hope or hopeless. I think we toss that word around a lot because you have some people that are just maybe depressed and they want to throw in the towel. They don't want to be married. They want to throw in the towel. They want to give up. Any they're on a job and they just don't like it, and that's not hopelessness. Hopeless, when I see 52 weeks of hope, I love that title because when I see it, I understand in a different way what that means. That could mean that you could have someone on your show that you're interviewing that can say one word that will keep someone from literally taking your lives.
Absolutely. And it's part of why I did this. A friend of mine took his life. I mean, there were over 1,000 people at his funeral. And somebody lit me up when I saw him. I love his family. I still love his family. And it's not about being loved. I mean, so yeah, you keep going. I'm somebody that I had nothing. I mean, when I was a kid, I was strung out on drugs. I lived in an abandoned house. And people that know my story, I come from nothing at all. So I know hopeless. I did not know there was a way out. I didn't know there was anybody else like me. I wanted to die. I was 83 pounds, having grand mal seizures. I was a wreck, a shell of a person. I had no one. And I ended up in a rehab and I got hope. I got hope. I found out there were other people like me. There was a way to get better. And to this day, I help others. And that's why I say I'm always grateful for my life. I know hopeless. I was being interviewed by a panel actually on this. They were very cool. And one guy said, how do we know you? When do we know your story? Why should we even listen to you? So I told him I went through it a lot more detail than that right now. And shut them up. Like, I know, believe me. Okay.
Down right quick. So would you?
I'm like, okay, what do you want to, that's why I say I am an open book. I don't, and I used to not talk about this, but, I didn't know there was a way out. So no matter how you're feeling, it passes. That's the other thing. Who knew? When you're in it, you think it's forever. But really, and I have a friend, we all walked her through the loss. Her son suddenly, her 11-year-old son passed away. And we've all walked her through it. That's the worst tragedy to me. There's nothing worse. Okay. This is the worst. And she's actually an episode, and it's an uplifting episode. She's a producer of one of these reality shows that's famous and everything. But she was very open about when her son getting diagnosed, and just like, and everyone thought he was going to get better, but he passed away. And And even in her worst grief, it wasn't for the whole day. Like when she goes through it, because she's not even 2 years out. It's for 15 minutes. It's not even a whole hour. I was told that pain peaks for 5 minutes. So that makes me lean into it because who wants to feel pain? And so you just keep going because no matter what you're going through, it always passes. I have interviewed people. I mean, I interviewed Andre Norman. I think his episode aired. I'm so bad at time. I don't have my whole list, but it's this year. Anyway, he was in prison for 100 years. He's trying to be the number one in the prison. He's so motivational. If you do nothing else, just listen to the very end. When I say, is there anything I should have asked you that I forgot to ask? And he says, yeah. And he goes into the most motivational speech ever. I made it just its own little extra 5-minute thing. Andre Norman, listen to him. He got out. He went from 100-year prison sentence to Harvard, MIT, speaks everywhere. It's unbelievable. So you think you're hopeless? He was in one of those cells, I mean, you listen to his story.
Cell. Okay,
yeah,
a real
yeah,
cell.
Yeah, not so, and he
I love the fact that you said, okay, is there anything else you want to say? He goes into this whole thing and you're like,
oh, wow. It is. He's amazing. And, he says, if he lives across the street from a cemetery, if you're not in there, you've got a chance. You've always got a chance. It's never too late to live your dream and create whatever magic you want in your life. I'm proof of that. I mean, yeah, my kids are now both in college and I've a burnt out lawyer. It's been over, I think it's a quarter of a century now, but who cares? I've always been of service. I'm always helping people. Yeah.
You're still young, trust me.
Yeah, I know. But
what is your dream life? If now that you have this, now that you have 52 weeks of hope, and God is using you to bring all of this life to because that's what you're doing, bringing life and renewal. That's what hope is. Hope is a renewing of what we already have. You know what I'm saying? You already have the ability to be joyful. But when life hits you a certain way, you lose it. You forget that you have it. So what hope does is just renews everything that we already possess within ourselves. You have a renewing of life. You have a renewing of your thoughts. You have a renewing of your actions. All of the things that are already there are just renewed. When someone gives you hope, gives you a reason to keep going, to keep pressing. And like you said, if you wake up every day above the dirt, baby, you got hope because you're not in a grave and somebody didn't wake up. So that is the one thing that I thank God for every single morning. I thank you that you woke me up this morning because you did not have to do it. My name did not have to be on the list. So now that you're being used to do this for other people, and you said that you know what it's like to not have hope. Isn't it the beautiful thing that you go from not having hope and not thinking that there was anything available to you to now being used to bring that to other people? So if this is not your dream life, what does a dream life for you beyond this point, beyond the podcast, beyond all of that? What does it look like for you? And I don't mean because we're moms and we always give this answer. I want to see my children grown. I want to see them married. I want to see them leave home. That's how mommy answer. I don't like mommy answers. I don't like typical by rote answers because there are some things that we really, if I had my dream life, this is what I would. If I had my dream life, I'd be sitting somewhere in a beach house, looking out at the waves with my journal and my cup of coffee. And I'd be like this, chilling. Don't call me. Don't text me. Don't nothing me. I just give me about that's a dream life for me.
Yeah, 3 months of that. I need 3 months.
That's all. I'll be back. Don't worry. I'll be back. So for you, you've done law. You've been doing it for 22 years. You've gotten past whatever somebody would have ascribed to your past and whatever, like somebody said, tell me your story and what makes your story work. Well, sit down, take a seat, grab a cup of coffee, grab a cup of tea. Let me tell you about it. From this point forward, because 52 weeks of hope isn't going anywhere. I'm gonna tell you that. It's not a COVID thing.
Oh, no. We're 80 weeks in or whatever it is. Yeah. 80 some. Yeah.
You got a long way to go because he's gonna keep giving you reasons to keep going because people are always gonna be with need hope. But what does your dream life look like?
Well, I want to finish my book. It started as a book, and I love to write. So I've got it started and outlined, and so
You're gonna finish your book, so that's a goal. That's not a life. For your dream life, what does it look like?
I'm living my dream right now. I'm the beginning of an empty nester. I'm just taking that in. My kids are both in college now, so
don't count on it. They may come back. We're gonna pray on that. We're gonna pray on that.
Yeah, I know they do. So I'm just right now like breathing and enjoying. I live a day at a time. But no, I got married last year. I mean, we've been together a long time, so it's that nothing changed there. But we have our the things that we're working towards, and but I love podcasting. It lights me up. It makes me so happy to meet people and to learn your stories and to just keep being of service. And I'm going to get my book out there and just to meet somebody like you and to listen to your podcast and what you're doing, what you're giving. This is what makes me happy and lights me up.
Mine is kind of crazy.
Yeah. But I love this. This is what makes me happy. This is what lights me up. Going to the beach as often as possible. And once we can really travel again, I don't know, I just started traveling, as far as visiting some family and stuff like that. So, I've got my plan.
You know that you're just you just have a beautiful spirit. Do you know that? Has anybody told you that?
Thank you.
You know that? You really do. And it really comes across. It really does. And it comes across as very sincere. No, I just got corrected. The word that comes to mind is humble. And that is why you probably that's why you get the responses you do. It's the humility. Because even in sharing, I can tell you love what you do, because even in sharing what other people have shared with you, you light up. And there's a sense of humility. And I'm so glad that I did not let knowing who you were get in the way of this interview, because I would have missed that, trying to see someone else. You know what I'm saying?
No, I just enjoy, like, this is so fun for me to get to meet you and then your listeners by way of you and things like that. It's just, I love that you do your every single morning. You work through your fears and now, what did you say? You're 3 years in of doing every single morning doing that. I heard that. I was like, ooh, that's such a good idea. I don't know. I mean, just to lift people up every single morning. I mean, how great is that?
There's someone is when I need let me tell you, there is, but it's not. Now, one other thing that you have on here is that that is a passion of mine. Let's talk about community. What is community?
So, and by the way, that's one of the messages of the meaning of life. Love and community are the two things that are needed. And in the blue zones, where people live the longest and are the healthiest, which, why would you want to live a long time if you're not healthy? That's kind of right? I mean, I wouldn't want to.
Did y'all catch that? She said, why would you want to live long if you're not healthy? So, that is a difference.
But they have community. It's where they care about each other. They talk to each other. They check on each other, and there's community. And community is so important. I mean, you've got a community with you're a pastor of a community. I would imagine. I mean, who you're talking to every morning.
Yeah, and let me tell you, you say that, and I almost laughed it off. It has really become that. There are my morning ladies that come on. They've been supporting me since I started. And it means the world to me. But then over the last 3 years, he has sent women from places I will probably never ever get to visit. Pastor from India, Pakistan, just all over the United States, places I know that I would not ordinarily reach them. And it is a community. And I think what makes community more important than anything is the idea that we are all the same. We're just different. We're all the same, but different. Does that make sense to you? That's what
Yeah, it totally does. It does.
all the
And
same, but different. We all have the same basic needs in life. We really do. We make it look as if we don't, but we really do. And how do we build that community? Well, we build that community one person at a time. And if it's Lauren, and then Lauren meets Pat, and then Pat meets somebody else, and we just build this community where we all understand that we all have the same goal in life. And that's to be what? To be loved and to be understood and to be listened to and to be cared for. So you said your growing up was a little bit different. I can tell you your growing up was a lot different than mine. Most people I meet. I'm a Southern girl, and I grew up in a neighborhood where we were all, I mean, anybody was watching you. You hear what I'm saying? Everybody. You heard it takes a village? No, it takes one street in Houston to make sure everybody knows that you're right on, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I think we need to get back to that. And when you talk about community, when you say, why is community important? I can tell you why I think it's important, but first I want you to share with me.
oh, I would love to hear what you have to say, because that's what keeps us alive. I mean, that was the hardest thing. What my two biggest messages from the elders that I was interviewing was that we need community. We need each other. You can't text your way and have that. You have to have contact with each other. They said, you young people need to put down your phones. I like being called a young person. And that was a big thing. It's that we need that connection. I mean, we connect through our stories. I said that earlier, but we need the human connection. And through that, we get community. And there's communities for everything. There really are.
Mhm.
So, and there's a big, authentic. Everything's being authentic. You know what? Just be yourself. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a hashtag. It's just about being yourself and finding your people that you feel comfortable with. That's your community. You don't need 500 people, but you do need a group that you're comfortable with. We're not meant to isolate. I mean, I love that people that are isolating, their solution to isolation is more isolation. Doesn't work.
Let me give you, because you said something that's really important. You said, when I talk to my elders, I think that's a huge missing component to our communities now, is those of us that are older are way too silent. And when we become silent, then we leave the younger and the next generation vulnerable to everybody else's perceptions. But it is to me, I'm responsible to whatever wisdom I have about whatever topic, to pour that into another young Christian woman. That's my target ministry, is women, Christian women. Take my experiences and be transparent enough with them to pour into them, so that they pour into their kids, and then they pour into their kids, and then they pour.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we build this nucleus of a community that once we understand our worth and value, then we're able to go out and we're able to pour into other people. Now they know their worth and their value. And now we take back our children, our neighborhoods, but to just basically live life and be blind to the things that we see going on in our communities, and not that to me is a pet peeve. And I know that our church is small. We have a very small church, and I'm like you. I don't think you need a big name to do that. I don't think you need to be famous to do that. I don't think it requires all of that to say, I care about community. I care about listening to the elders. And when the elders say to me, y'all just on your phone and y'all just doing your thing and ... and then hear it and then don't do anything about it, then I think that's why we don't have community. We don't have community because we have chosen to become divided. And we have gotten so comfortable being divided that I think COVID just made it even better. You know what I'm saying? For everybody to go and get in their little own spaces and ... And we do a Zoom and we do this and we do that. And then we just go back to our neutral corners. And I think when we do things like 52 Weeks of Hope, when we talk to other people that are from other places and have other experiences, then we're building community. That to me is community, period. That's it.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely community. And one of the regions is, like, if you look at the list of the blue zones and the top healthiest areas, you'll be surprised. It's not like what you think.
Where is it?
It's not Paris. It's not like, it's like in Finland and Norway. It's in these really cold, so it's not like they're outside, and I don't know. And then there's this random city outside of Los Angeles that's I've never been to. It's just this tiny enclave. I'm like, are you kidding? And so they must be a very tight knit. I would, and so it's just, they're very random, and it's because it's, if you look up blue zones, that's the best way to do it. It's too much to actually even talk about. I think I'm going to write another article about it, because it's about caring for each other and a sense of, there's other factors now that come into it about health insurance and how health is taken care of and things like that since COVID with the new results. But it's so interesting. But it is about caring for each other and speaking up and caring for your neighbor. It's very old stuff.
I'm checking out blue zones. I'm going to check out blue zones and educate myself.
And breathing. Don't forget your breathing.
No, I'm looking for the breathing. I'm going to check it out on your page. I'm going to check out the breathing, because a 4-year-old, 3-year-old, 17-year-old, and a 14-year-old grandchildren, I need to learn how to breathe.
You got to breathe.
I gotta breathe. Now, you said you asked everybody that you interview, what is their message for hope? And I know that you said you've got a lot of people that have put, and before I do this, because I want you to answer this question, but also I am so blessed to have you with me, that I want to invite you back. I want to do a part 2. I have a separate podcast. It's not a separate podcast, but an extension of this podcast, and it's Beyond the Porch. And it's only for members those that have signed up for my podcast. And that way they are privileged to get exclusive interviews beyond what I do here. And I really want to have you come back. I want to have you and give you the freedom to just discuss some real things, because I think you have a story that's going to help people beyond the 52 weeks. You understand what I'm saying? Because
yeah, I do. I got it.
Whatever we go through, it's for somebody else, never for us. So you just let me know when that's good for you, and we'll get that done and scheduled. But you've had so many people pour into you about what their message of hope is. I want you to close us out by giving us what your message of hope is.
My message of hope is that everything always works out. It just does. It might not be on our timetable. It's usually not on our timetable. That you just keep going and put one foot in front of another, because it will work out. It just does. And it might not look like you think it's going to look like. It might not go the way, but it just does. So you just keep going. God's got lots of surprises, and have a sense of humor, because even when things are the darkest, and I have talked to people that have been through the most unbelievable, Amberly Lago, when she talks about resilience, we are a resilient species. They always say kids are resilient. We're resilient too. Like we are. I mean, we've all been through it. So if you, and the only thing to compare yourself to, don't compare yourself to anything other. This is what I was taught. I can only compare myself to where I've come from. I don't compare myself to you or anything else, because when I start comparing my insides, your outsides, or what you have, like, we have no idea about anyone. I mean, you didn't know I came from what I come from until I start talking about it. You have no idea. So the only thing I'm allowed to compare myself to is where I've come from. And then I can see I've gone through anything. And if I've gone through those things, I can go through this thing too. So everything really does work out. I don't know how, it just does. That is my experience. And I've been in the darkness, in the absolute darkness, and I've come out the other side. And you only need, by the way, 51%. And this is the lawyer in me. You don't need to have 100% hope. You only need a little tiny sliver. And if you need to borrow mine, borrow it, because I'm telling you, it will work out. Maybe not in the next 15 minutes, but it really will. Like, I've had no money. I've been living nowhere. Like, I've been through so much, and I'm here on the other side. So I've been through the heartaches and the guys and the this and the that, like, not pregnant. I mean, I've been through so many things, and yet it's worked out. Like, here it is. It's not like, oh, I dance through life and skip through my day. I meditate, I stay connected to source energy. I pray to God, and I just ask for strength, and I get through the next day. And I also ask to enjoy the day, because why not?
Not, I mean,
we're allowed to ask. We can ask for whatever we want.
If I'm gonna get through it, please let me enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's bottom line. Please let me enjoy it. So I know that my audience is going to love you, and I know that they're going to love that honest answer, not so way over your head that it's not possible to accomplish. Just really simple. Everything's gonna be all right. Everything's gonna work out. All right, it's just gonna work out. Just trust the process and let it work out. What better advice for someone that's hopeless than to hear someone say, it's all gonna work out. Even in what I do. That's the only answer I can give anyone. I can't change this. Look, we can't change the situation. We can't alter it. All we can say is, if you hang on in there, watch, it's gonna work out for your good. It may not seem like it, may not feel like it. It's gonna work out for your good if you just go through the process. So thank you so much for joining me today. I could really talk to you forever and ever, but my producer would kill me. She would kill me and have a fit. Because she knows I am when I'm talking to someone that this has happened with, I've had that click with. So I am so honored and so blessed to have you. And I thank you so much. And like I said, I invite you to come back and do an episode for Beyond the Porch, where we can really talk about some things a little bit more openly than we can here, because I'm very, very respectful of my audience here. But those of you that have subscribed to Porch Talk via Zippy Stream, you know that that's real, that's raw. I don't hold anything back. And I invite my guests to do the same. So if you are subscribed, then you already know what you're going to get. If you have not subscribed, subscribe to Zippy Stream, ZIPISTREAM. Subscribe to Porch Talk and get ready to get some exclusive Beyond the Porch conversation about whatever I choose to talk about. And y'all better be ready, because I'm getting my head together for it. So it's going to be some real deal conversations about community, about the things that I am passionate about, and how and why and how we can do better than we're doing with what God has given us. So subscribe today. Thank you for joining me on the porch. I'll be right back here next Friday. I can't say same time. You just know that it drops on Fridays. In the meantime, pay attention. Take advantage of and embrace the blessings that every day holds for you. But more importantly, make an effort to be a blessing to somebody else. And we will see you next Friday.